and I'll email it to you. I hate that Google makes it so many clicks to get to the URL. Should be a URL for you. Okay. I think we left off with saying that she's just blowing hot air, and none of it is registering with this fella. He's a problem.
Yes. Do we ever come back to him?
I don't think so.
It's funny going through this again, and it probably would benefit from multiple reads, but going through it again and trying to think about some of these threads that maybe don't connect.
Right. Yeah, and this is a good spread to communicate that. I like that the flashback is done with panel borders and color palette, so we see these moments, and it looks like pretty harrowing moments. So that's evocative. That gets into your mind, and you're like, okay, well, what was that moment? Clearly, we have like one major moment that was transformative in these characters' lives, but we're bringing a new sibling, a younger sibling, into the mixture with her boyfriend, who has the Mike Tyson moon part. But when you look at that, man, you got to kind of think of like young Jesse Custer, even though that's a girl.
Yeah, big time. That's a heavy lifting piece for an artist to be doing flashbacks of these characters, but you want to be able to identify them in like one panel.
Yeah.
That's a lot to ask.
Yeah, he made it happen.
He does.
And Ennis, the eyes are easily identifiable. The eyeballs are easily identifiable as Dylan, but he's able to change these proportions and the noses and the face shapes to give you these subtle differences in character. He's always excelled at that.
Look at the space game of these three panels. Like it really is like actors sitting around, and then your camera just kind of like slightly resetting for each of those panels, but like all the space is consistent. Right.
Not too many writers in comics have the ability to carry a story through dialogue in this way. You run the risk of being very boring. This is a visual medium, and to do your My Dinner with Andre sequence, like you need real pros. And Ennis and Dylan, fewer people could accomplish what they accomplish on the comic page.
Yeah, again, especially in the mainstream.
Yeah, especially in the mainstream. We have this dynamic between Bernadette and her boyfriend. She is going to visit an aunt. She knows that those aunts are those like old school type family members that have racism built into their ideology. So might be a little dicey to bring the dude to that area. So he's going to hang back with the family here while she goes out there to go visit the uncle and aunt.
Yeah, and a real coolness between Bernadette and Kathy, the old sister and the young sister.
Right.
which we'll get into more.
We will. The boyfriend character seems to gel really well with the family. Like the one brother is the drunkard of the crew and is like, let's go get pissed. So the boyfriend, he's new to this area, so he's the cipher for us in this town that now has military vehicles coming through. It made me think about when I went to Angoulême. It was right after the Charlie Hebdo stuff went down. And when I'm in Paris, there were these soldiers who, as say a 34, 35-year-old guy, however old I was, having these 18-year-old boys who weren't using proper gun safety kind of positioning. And I'm looking down the barrel of a gun as they're walking by me with their little short shorts on, looking at girls. And it did not make me feel safe. It made me feel real nervous.
Yeah, I remember right after 9/11 flying and seeing like the machine gun soldiers in the airports and just being like, wow.
Yeah.
Like holding their gun, It was different. I mean, I guess we get used to it over time. But what a great panel for like focal point. Everybody's looking one direction except for our guy who's new to the scene. You go right to his gaze and what he's looking at, and what he's looking at's right in the foreground. There are a lot of these moments in this comic that you could almost teach a course on panel composition and things for storytelling. Right. And I think this panel is one of the great examples of that.
There'll be a couple of examples further of our guy interacting with this area, and it's several conversations about just how this is life, this is what it is, we're used to it. And I do think that there's some connection with everything that they're saying in relation to their family dynamic.
Yeah.
That's why it requires that extra reading to just, maybe you could pull exactly those points. And that could also be up to the Kayfabers who might know this story a little bit more intimately. Here we have the kind of fuck up brother who got fired from a job and explaining the whole situation. And this is the world that these people live in. Okay, so this is just going along with what our guy saw earlier. He's taken a poop at the office, got headphones on when an R2-D2 from the bomb squad comes through because a suspicious package was seen in the building, but it turned out to be his kind of ham sandwich or something. You got the bomb squad guys that look nearly Kirby-ish. They look like sci-fi characters, and I think that they're drawn with that intention to kind of look like alien forms or something.
How bad is your day when you have to put on that bomb suit?
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
But that's you speaking as Cartoonist. I think those guys are G.I. Joes, man, and they're like, yes, let's do it, just like the firemen and shit. And then just go into a bar and there's some bullshit going down there, but the people who are from that town, it's nothing to them. They're just like, well, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. We've just spent how many pages talking about violence, and it's kind of on this like national level. But you're walking down the street and it's like, here we go, two guys that are ready to go at it.
That's the South Side in Pittsburgh, man. Yes. On bar night.
Put some trash in the street.
And a crying girl with a broken heel on every corner. And even when they go get something as simple as some French fries, they gotta, there are some soldiers there with machine guns and stuff. So this is life in Belfast at this moment in time.
Did they say where Bernadette's boyfriend's from?
Yeah,
he says bloody hell. So
yeah, I think it's like London proper.
Okay.
And so like you have the relationship of London, England with Ireland, helping to create a lot of this kind of tension in the country. Here's our flashback sequence here. And the boyfriend, he gets along famously with the family. Everybody digs him. See, like this moment right here, I think that's a very telling kind of set of facial expression that we see there.
Yeah, is that bedroom eyes?
That's bedroom eyes, man. She's you want your woman to be able to look at you like that. Sleeping on the floor. And they might even be talking about, oh yeah, I don't want to throw you out of your bed. See, yeah, this really does require that second reading.
Mm-hmm. And the backstory here is the girlfriend, her sister, Kathy's sister, never talks about her. You know, they have this very bad relationship, the two sisters.
Right. And let's explore where that kind of comes from.
Sure, here we go.
Flashback sequence. We got a younger Bernadette, and it's cool, right? This is something that Dylan excels at, and he's done it in Preacher a lot, where you have the different ages of Jesse Custer and his mother and stuff. Got some lineage. You take the lineage out, you got a younger girl. Nearly the same hair. It is a different hairstyle and stuff, but you know that this is her. You take the lines out. That's that old cartooning rule, right? Like, the more lines you put on the face, the more age you add. But then we have our twin siblings here. Girl has longer hair, and the boy has no ability to grow facial hair, some pimples and things. And they're twins, unlike any other twins I've ever known, in that they're contentious and that they fight with one another. I've never seen that. I've known a couple of sets of twins throughout my life, and that's never been the case.
Yeah, we have new twins in my neighborhood, and they get along so far.
Yeah.
I'll keep you guys up to date on it. We'll check back in 15 years.
It's always Tomax and Zaymont, man.
But here's our youngest sister.
Yeah, little Bernadette.
Waiting for daddy to come home drunk after a typical night out.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like, this thing rings so close to home. Not with my personal nuclear family, but I have some friends who, you know, the girl who was the youngest and the least kind of aware of the hardcore shit that was going on. Such daddy's girl, and like the dad, total fucking piece of shit, to the point of like having to go to jail and stuff. And the rest of the family completely outside of his influence whatsoever. Yeah, this one really, really kind of struck close to home, because the guy's, you know, he's a drunkard, he's a schmuck, he's an asshole. He dotes on the little baby, but everybody else kind of be damned. And you see that a lot. You know, that's people. That's even, you know, people who have pets or like that, or like, you know, the puppy could do no wrong, but then, you know, as the puppy grows up,
yeah,
you lose the interest.
Boy, great with the facial expressions too, because that's the ultimate split, right? The mom and the dad.
Absolutely. And once again, another strength of Steve Dillon is making these characters, they look like a family. You know, like some of the characters have a little bit of mom face. Some of them have dad face. You could thank the colorist for coloring the hairs all the same. But the mom and the dad completely going at it. And this is not a one-dimensional sort of a Silver Age Marvel comic where the dad is like purely evil, the mom is purely good. The mom's going to be talking about like what a great man he was, and like how amazing he was when they got married, and all that sort of stuff, and tells Kit, I believe, Kathy, don't marry a dude that like me. Don't do that, because we all know the dynamic. We all know the kind of dynastic reinforcement of the bad logic that sort of happens where,
you know, I'll go back
people
one
fall
page,
into patterns and stuff.
because I wonder how much of this story is set up as like this interior of this house and the history is basically a retelling of the Irish conflict, but, you know, made local.
Yeah.
Because you see them fighting here about the importance of names,
Right.
and, you know, she's trying to push off that history while he's clinging to it, and she's saying that's why we continue in this situation that we're in.
Right. And as a backdrop for the story, the dad just recently passed away. That's why everybody's kind of getting together. So now we got Kit, Kathy, and the boyfriend character alone, on their own, making time, getting to know one another.
I can almost imagine it being a play.
Yeah.
You know, two characters sitting on a bench here just talking.
Ennis can do hyperbole, and he could do these human moments too. And for all intents and purposes, if we're speaking in superhero comics parlance, Kathy is our protagonist, and she doesn't do a nice thing, you know, which also speaks to that multidimensionality of the characters.
Yeah, no great people in this comic. Or at
Just-
least
just
no,
people, just
no
humans.
flawless people, right?
Yeah, just humans, man. People make mistakes and life is complicated. So, she got a little wet in the knickers.
Another great panel. He says, "So you don't mind fooling around with your sister's boyfriend?" And she says, "I don't like my sister. What's your excuse?"
Right.
Oof, good stuff.
Yeah, man.
That's human nature. Really well represented in one panel.
And when you have, a family drama, you got to get that family back right at the most inopportune time. And not only does the little sister see it, but everybody sees it. So you have that moment of being surprised by our characters engaging in their infidelities. You have the other people who you get the sense that maybe they were watching it for a couple seconds. They might have been standing there. They've went through the surprise part of the emotion already and are kind of like more disappointed. We see Bernadette none too happy, and here we go. The brother reads the room well and is like, "Well, let's go get a drink, fellas."
That feels like the child, the PTSD child too. Like what's his role in all of this? Try to avoid the violence, try to lighten the mood, try to do anything.
Right. And it's also a thing where like a conversation needs to be had. So got to clear the room out a little bit. And now we jump back to the crying Bernadette face that we saw earlier with the kind of flashback color with that wine color and the gray colors. We're getting back into that mode. And you can see that with these characters. We got the young twin siblings again. We got Bernadette with the Kathy with the pulled back kind of hair rather than the part on the side. And we have the drunk dad coming home a little hammered, spills tea on himself and blames it on the mom. The mom makes a little joke about the pops that probably any sort of normal dad will probably just like laugh off. But this guy, emasculated. Hardcore. Gives the old lady a damn headbutt. A nose breaker.
Punches the kid in the stomach.
Because the kid has to come to defend the mom, man. Oof.
Yeah, horrible scene. And now we see Kathy come in. The oldest sister is going to try to stop this with her own violence.
And probably, the most capable character in the situation, and probably feels super responsible for the family. The mom is already whittled down to a nub. The kids are too little to do anything, so she's earning her position in the family. Jabs them with a bread knife.
That is what it is.
So it's a blunt bitch.
How about Steve Dillon, man? Whenever it's time to like ramp things up, quite a range of what he can do with a human face.
Totally. She says, "I wish I would have stuck that knife through your heart." And then we got that exact camera angle. Leave my daddy alone. Little Bernadette who gets doted on by the drunken dad, who doesn't quite understand all of the turmoil that he's putting the rest of the family through. And we see that is where this kind of main source of the dynamic. And it goes to the point where Bernadette, modern day, "Are you determined to wreck my life?" she says, man.
Yeah, practically blames the older sister for killing the dad.
Yeah. Spits on her face. And then we get into a place where our protagonist does another thing that's not nice. That goes against any kind of protagonist instinct. And she basically lies to the girl to just make her feel bad, saying that wasn't there something about some sort of maybe like that the mom got like raped within the marriage,
right?
And that's why you're here. Which turns out not to be true. She admits it to somebody else, but that she was just trying to hurt this person, which happens in arguments if you don't put yourself in check, if you get too emotional.
Yeah, especially arguments with loved ones. It's not like this is the random person you're yelling at in the South Side.
Right.
This is we grew up together, let me stick the knife in and twist.
I know you're Achilles' heel. I know it. And I'm going to tell you it. And it looked effective. Moment of silence, the girl skedaddles. And then we cut to the dudes. And the dudes kind of get it. my brother's like, there's going to be hell to pay. Uh, you get the sense that there's some remove from Bernadette with him also. Laughing and joking with this guy.
Yeah, it does seem like all the older siblings, like Bernadette's on an island.
Yeah.
They were all there, and I think they all recognized the dad as being shit.
Right.
Except for her.
And you catch your whippings, like if you catch your whipping from that dad, like that could put you in a mind state, and she probably never got one. And then you have this boyfriend character who's kind of like a third wheel. He's not a blood relative. He's just kind of outside, and he's like a real piece of shit. Maybe even we saw Kathy have the conversation with the mom. Don't date somebody. Don't ever be involved with somebody like your dad. And this guy's pretty close to the dad. Like maybe mom did not have that conversation with that daughter. And then we realize that he's has his own infidelities. So he's the biggest kind of piece of shit. That's like very clear. There's like no redeeming quality. And then at the end, you discover that not only is there infidelity there, but like it's already known. Like the wife knows it.
This is good sibling stuff too. And here are the twins, by the way. Like they're pretty close. They may fight a little bit whenever they were in those flashbacks or whatever, but you see them as like besties.
Right.
But they're joking around about Claire bringing her boyfriend out, and she's like, "If you promise not to try and get with him." That feels real to me in terms of characters, like whether it's good friends or family, where it's like you just can't let it go, but you also get a little extra leeway too.
Right. And we have our kind of thematic mirroring of our opening sequence and our way to get out of this comic with those kind of R2-D2 C3PO guys who are kind of the watchers of this sleepy little town. Can't sleep on the ad for Unknown Soldier, because this, I guess, is probably the height of Garth Ennis's powers, man. Preacher is running on high, and he's just able to make deals, man. He was making a lot of deals and doing a lot of work for them. He did so well for that brand that whatever stuff he was coming up with and pitching, he was getting those opportunities. And then our drunkards have their little argument. We leave our guy, and then he's takes a nap on that rubble.
Mm.
And then it's the end note from Garth Ennis on the last page, kind of describing the changes that Belfast made just while he wrote this comic. Like when he first wrote it, it was already in the midst of like bombings happening every once in a while and a lot of kind of strife. Then the comic was set to come out, and then there was like ceasefires and truces that were announced. But then at the writing of the endnote piece, it's slowly getting back to those days, and he cannot wrap his mind around it, because like, why would you not want peace? Wasn't it nice that we had a couple of years where things were relatively really, really cool and chill and awesome? But we're gonna, we want some excitement. We want to get back to that nonsense. I feel like that rings true.
Yeah, it's quite a snapshot of a different time too. Pre-internet, pre-social media. It's always strange to think of like Belfast doing this in the 90s. I had a lit teacher in college that went to Ireland one summer for just to visit. I mean, it's this great literary tradition that the Irish have. And did a bus tour through Belfast, but it was while it was kind of like this was still a risk.
Totally.
Like it was still kind of a very hairy thing that he would do that. And talked about being kind of afraid whenever he was doing that part of the trip and stuff. And it's just like, one, it's not long ago. Like I'm in college at that age. I'm 20 whenever this stuff is kind of winding down. And I mean, it's Ireland. It's not like something we think of certain parts of the world and we just kind of go, that's, it's the Middle East, there's constant fighting or conflict. But you don't think about that in like Western Europe.
Right. Yeah, not
really,
in the modern day.
Really kind of wild. And for DC to do a book like this at that time, it's shocking to me. You know, I said at the top of this video, like, I'm kind of surprised this book exists. I can't imagine DC publishing a book like this today. Seems really edgy. And you think of Garth Ennis and the stuff that he writes, and in some ways, this is probably the most, like, on the edge in a lot of ways, even though there's nothing supernatural or even overly violent in this comic. But it just feels like kind of a shocking book.
Yeah, the Vertigo imprint and what Karen Berger kind of established over time, the subtleties of the human experience would come into those comics, you know, and Neil Gaiman explored ideas of, you know, trans rights and things 30 years before the conversation hit a wider stage, and it would be a place where you would find people of different kinds of sexualities within these titles. Just kind of, you know, a step up from your superhero fare in terms of the nature of these characters, what they experience, what they go through, closer to quote-unquote real. But this feels like a very strong slice of life human drama. Once again, you saw it, no real supernatural elements in here at all. I don't think he would have been able to sell this if it wasn't for the success of Preacher, because you put the names much bigger than anything. I think that Karen Berger might have instructed them to, like, kind of tweak the idea a little bit and just get one fucking Hellblazer character in there to say in the Diamond book that this is a satellite Hellblazer comic. So I think that administratively some things had to be done to make this comic possible. Also, by the way, that's the two kind of Irish people you got too. You got kind of the gingers, and then you got like the black haired ones.
I think it kind of speaks to, on a larger landscape of DC Comics, there is no place for a book like this at DC. You know, it's not like they're publishing original graphic novels of this sort or anything. Like, they've completely kind of shut this part off of, like, a creator doing something that's a very personal work and a work that is creator owned.
Yeah.
You know, like, that stuff has really just gone away.
Yeah.
And DC had a few different ways that they used to do that, and now that stuff, they don't do anything like that now.
Yeah, good call, man. Yeah, it's all IP form stuff at this point. Fun to look at, fun to...
Interesting comic.
It has been collecting dust in my back issues for 15 or 20 years, man. So it's fun to kind of dust off and give it a look. Because, you know, you look through it and you're like, hey, man, it just looks like a bunch of talking heads. But when you really crack it open, it's a very meaningful comic and story.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson, too, of you get this success that Ennis and Dylan had. What do you do with it? You know, push your chips in the middle and go for it now and then. And I feel like this is a comic where, like, you've earned a chance to do something different and take a swing, and they go for it.
We should all take that lesson to heart. Kayfabe-tober is upon us. Here is your drawing prompt list. Make sure that you screen grab it, and also make sure that you, if you're participating and you're going to draw from these prompts, that you tag us on social media with your drawings so that we can reshare as many of these as possible. We're a daily YouTube stream here at Cartoonist Kayfabe, and we have about 1,500 videos that are out there right now, including a lot of Preacher talk. There might even be a playlist for Preacher, I think. So take a look through the channel. Probably will be easier to search if you hit the magnifying glass and type in your favorite titles. Check out those episodes. If we haven't talked about your favorite comics yet, please let us know in the comments below, and we will push those comics a little bit higher on our to-read piles. The King Kayfabers on our Patreon are able to get access to all of our videos before anybody else. So nobody's been thinking about Heartland, and I bet you could find some copies on Amazon and eBay, but you might not be able to now because the King Kayfabers have snapped those up. So participating and endorsing Cartoonist Kayfabe with a King Kayfaber subscription can pay for itself. But ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. And Jimmy, I want you to tell the people right now what you have forthcoming.
Yeah, what I need you guys to do is hit your local comic shops and pre-order Street Angel Princess of Poverty. This will be out in November, but pre-orders are due now. Let them know you want a copy. This collects all of my Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive, also available from Image Comics. Get both books, and you will have a set of Street Angel for the first time under one publishing banner. Should look good on your shelf. but you got to let them know that you want a copy of Street Angel Princess of Poverty now while you still can. I have been self-publishing lately. You see the BW zine on the left, the celebration of the black and white explosion comics of the 80s, a huge inspiration for me more and more as I go forward and making my own stuff. 1986 zine, celebrating the biggest year in comics history. This is the when comic shops take over from the newsstands. This is Dark Knight, Mouse, Watchmen, all kinds of incredible stuff in 1986. And True Crime Funnies, 3 nonfiction stories, including a couple of wrestling yarns. These will all be available if you don't have a copy. They will be available October 26th on jimrugg.com. Kind of a big fall holiday sales push that I'm going to do there. Keep following along and be first in line on October 26th because I do have finite copies of all of this stuff.
The time is now, and we do have finite copies of the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus that are out there in the wild. About 75% of this print run have been accounted for by customers and readers at this point, and it's the best book I've made to date, and I really wish that you would put it on your library shelf as well. 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree. It's the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture, so we had to do it up in the biggest way possible with 150 pages of additional materials, and I hope you put this on your bookshelf this holiday season. October 18th, this comes out. Maybe 4 weeks later, in November, comes the X-Men Grand Design trade paperback that collects all 3 X-Men Grand Design books that I put together inside of one handy hardcover. And some of these are out of print, so please put your name on one of these, because who knows, Marvel might put one printing of that trilogy out and that'll be it. So make sure you put your name down for one of those. And Red Room has been the current focus for my comics work the past couple of years. 2 trade paperbacks exist right now, The Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings, but the 3rd trade paperback, called Crypto Killers, comes out in January. So please claim your copy as soon as possible. Use your Christmas loot to snap it up and complete the Red Room trilogy of horror comics. Murder on the Dark Web for fun and profit. Jimmy, the books are the most important part to keep the channel floating. Would you agree?
Yes.
But there are some other ways to support the channel. Let the people know.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. That'll keep you up to date on everything we have going on, where we're appearing, things of that nature. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video in the show notes.
All good ways to support the channel. Jimmy, please give the people their final marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
I'll do a little commercial real quick. Lock me in, Jim.
Say when.
Hit it. Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the books that we make, and we have a lot of stuff coming out in the very near future. Sooner than later, in mid-October, comes the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus for the 10-year anniversary of my Hip Hop Family Tree series. After that comes X-Men Grand Design Trilogy, which collects all 3 volumes of my X-Men Grand Design comics. There are 2 trades of Red Room out there right now, Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings, but the 3rd, called Crypto Killers, is coming out in January. Jimmy's been self-publishing some comics and magazines lately. The Black and White zine, 1986 zine, and True Crime Funnies are coming to you sooner than later. October, what date?
26th.
26th is going to be a sale at his website. Make sure you jump on that. Finite copies available. Street Angel, Princess of Poverty is coming to you in November. It is a companion piece to the Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive trade paperback, and before you is a bibliography of all the stuff that we have on the stands to date. Now let's get back to the video. So you gotta have the touch, man.
You barely touched it.
Because you don't have to press, man. I think
that's my father-in-law. Like,
I think the pressing fucks it up.
it must. Did so well in those first two.
I'm gonna do. I could get this Eisner one down, and then I think I'll do one after that. I'll do the Barry Windsor Smith joint.
Yeah, that should be slight.
And if you have any thoughts about how to sell this, I'll be all ears. But my thing is, like, Eisner continues to innovate, late into his career.
Oh yeah, on this new thread, I guess we didn't say it. The interview guest is Seth. Palookaville, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, Wimbledon Green, on and on.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have questions that you want Seth to that you want us to give to Seth, let us know before we wrap this up.
Yeah, like
Jabba, the difference in the 1986 zine printings. One of the things that I end up doing is very small print run on the first go because I don't do a printed proof. So that's kind of where I get the books back, take a look, and make adjustments. I changed the cover a little bit for the second printing, and I changed the paper stock from a 70-pound to a 60-pound. So minor details. Hopefully the cover's better. But the paper, I don't think you'll notice a difference.
Good if you are, Jimmy. Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Will Eisner Quarterly is under the microscope today, but first I want to give you guys the prompts for this Kayfabe-tober 2023. These are the instructions of what you need to draw from October 1st to October 31st. And when you draw these pieces and when you post them on your social media, you got to make sure you tag us. Got to make sure you @ us on Instagram, and we'll be able to be aware of them. We'll see them, and we'll be able to reshare as many of these as possible on our channel. Kind of boost your profile a little bit, and no doubt that you'll catch some kayfabe effect and get some new followers out of the mixture. We are a daily YouTube channel. 1,500 videos plus are out there right now to date, and new videos all the time, right? So we might have covered your favorites, and one way to find out is hit the magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Give it a search for your favorite titles and check out those videos. The Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon exists, and it is there for the King Kayfabers to join the crew, pledge support, and get all the videos before anybody else gets them. Mitigates the kayfabe effect because they get these vids and also have access to a live stream recording session where they see us actually recording this stuff. So comics like this Will Eisner Quarterly that might be on eBay right now, and it might be very attractive to a lot of the people who are watching this. It's the King Kayfabers who have first dibs and could get the cheapest copies of this series. Without further ado, Jimmy, let's just breeze through some of these real quick, man. So this is starting in about 1985, I believe, with Will Eisner Quarterly, a collaboration with Dennis Kitchen as publisher. And it was a way for Will Eisner, who put out a couple complete graphic novels already, certainly A Contract with God, and he had a Spirit magazine. I'm not 100% sure, but he may have done some chapters of, Signal to Noise and a couple other stories that then get collected into the bigger books, but he might not have. Like, I just don't have access to those. But this is a very concerted effort to serialize graphic novels, to share some interviews, shop talk as it were, and these are the interviews that are in the shop talk book that came out from Will Eisner.
We've done a couple of videos on a couple of those shop talk interviews.
Yeah. You know what else might be cool is to promote the John B. Cook's Will Eisner documentary, Portrait of a Sequential Artist. The Blu-ray is essential to have because the actual interviews that are in each of these issues, because it's a Blu-ray and you could fit way more data on these discs, the actual audio interviews with Jack Kirby, Harvey Kurtzman, Milt Caniff, Neil Adams, Gil Kane, Joe Kubert, Phil Seuling, Joe Simon, C.C. Beck, Gil Fox, you could hear the men speak, and they actually the interviews get truncated and transcribed, and you cut out a little bit of stuff. But maybe you want to hear Jack Kirby kind of veer off and kind of talk about something else that might not have be germane to the exact discussion, but it's more Jack Kirby. So I advise everybody, and this is where the kayfabe effect is going to come in, because I think that this can get very expensive, but it's the King Kayfabers who are getting the first dibs.
Man, and getting that audio from the actual sources is fantastic. But these magazines, I'm so impressed by them. I have a couple of them. I don't have the full run. They're so great because they're such a reflection of Eisner. Like he's teaching at SVA at this point, and you kind of have that ambassador of comics on display here, whether it is showing off like what can graphic novels do in new work,
right,
or talking to these greats and masters and really exploring the comics form.
Yeah,
it's really something that Eisner, in my lifetime, this is kind of what I think of as Eisner, and it's beautifully represented in this magazine.
Yeah, we're getting some this is pre-war spirits. You could always tell like it's kind of a little bit more of a conservative bend, but it looks like we're getting like an entire comic section from the newspapers.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It even has it listed as Detroit, like it's, I assume, scanned from those, maybe cleaned up a little bit. You see like the yellow is more white than you might expect,
right?
But otherwise, like, it's so neat to see that artifact again, making for a very good, compelling magazine.
And a shop talk piece. So we have the interview with Neil Adams in the first one, and then a lot of great supplementary materials to go along with the conversation to show his Johnstone and Cushing works and all the highlights of his career. His submission pages for DC Comics show up in here.
Boy, and just the two of them, Neil Adams and Will Eisner, you think of two guys who really pushed the boundaries of comics. That's a couple of giants sitting down talking shop.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then there will be comics that are kind of one and done, and they really kind of go along with his syllabus and the rubric that he's designed in comics and sequential art.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's just a really fantastic. If you're a fan, not just of Eisner but of comics, there's a lot to offer in a magazine like this. I never know who should get the credit for this kind of a project, but it feels visionary to me, and it feels like you really have people working together. In this case, I'm going to say Dennis Kitchen and Will Eisner, but really kind of making something special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it's an innovation in his career at such a late stage. The serialized novel, that's Dickensian. Mm-hmm. That's existed for forever.
His page layouts, man, like we've heard guests like Steve Bissett and Rick Veitch talking about not liking the grid, and then you flip through like Will Eisner's 80s work,
right,
when he's kind of an old guy, like he could have been retired at that point if he was a mail clerk or something, but instead like he's pushing these layouts, and you can really see him whenever you go back to like the Spirit reprints from the 40s, and then you check in on this guy 40 years later, and it's like, look at how much stuff he's added to his game over the years.
Right. Gil Fox conversation about Lou Fine, who was the all-star of comic book artwork at the time that he was in the game, and Eisner and everybody like really looked up to him.
Yeah, part of the Eisner studio. They would often you'll read probably in that interview about those guys having contests who could draw the finest line with their brush.
Yeah, like long and straight, and
it was Lou
skinny.
Fine was the guy.
Yes. There are
like the ads too. Seeing what Kitchen Sink is selling, man. That's an interesting couple of books right there.
Kitchen Sink to me, I'm so familiar with their brand and stuff because, I have almost every issue of the comic book version of the Spirit. Got all the Megaton Mans, a whole bunch of Lil Abners. So it's a real brand. Like, show me any section of this, and it's like, I know that's a Kitchen Sink ad. But Eisner, he put in the effort, man, for 2 years on this project. 8 issues exist. And what would happen is ultimately, Life Force would be collected in its own trades. Dennis Kitchen had the bibliography. I think he was kind of like an executor to the estate, or at least maybe an agent for Will Eisner. Even in the final days, you see Dennis Kitchen's name on the final projects that Eisner put out there.
Yeah, he has a lot of those long relationships Dennis Kitchen does with different artists.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't seen it, we do have a pretty good interview with Dennis Kitchen. And I say that because we need a part 2.
We do.
But I mean, it's a guy who's been in comics for decades, and we're kind of going chronologically. So check out the Dennis Kitchen interview if you're not familiar with Kitchen Sink.
And I'd recommend, we did a video on Will Eisner's The Dreamer, which is kind of like a Aftermag Kayfabe version of his origin story with a bunch of names changed and things. And a lot of the people who are discussed in these interviews and stuff, Lou Fine,
Yes.
they're characters in the...
That was fantastic. That interviewer just flipped through Phil Souling, who passed away in '84. So this is a little bit of an older interview, kind of shining a light on this guy who more or less invented what we think of as the direct market, had New York comic book shows, like just a guy whose influence is massive on comics, and several page interview with him.
Yeah, very important. And that's an interview that like we probably should unpack sooner than later. Starts to become perfect bound and with a readable spine. So it's like it's a proper magazine, and it's an innovation for Will Eisner in his career. But these kind of comics existed in a lot of ways. The R. Crumb brand of comics, where it would be an anthology of all original material and stuff, that existed before. But the kind of packaging of this, where some heavy lifting is done. I like that he's maintaining the page numbers as he's going forward as he's building his graphic novel. But some heavy lifting is done by having a back catalog of existing material that he already owns. So he could take this opportunity and print this stuff up. And I would bet that the materials that we see in here are probably handpicked because they are not oft reprinted. I think that might be why they're choosing like pre-war spirits, because like sometimes they would show up here and there, but the kitchen sink stuff was very linear in the post-war. So it would, as soon as Eisner comes back and gets on the ball, like that series begins and completes the entire run with issue 80, mid 80s, 85, something like that.
Interesting, an article by Kat Ironwood, closely associated with Eclipse. She and Dean Mulaney were married and publishers of Eclipse Comics at this time, but also a historian.
Yeah, and she would do all the editorializing in supplemental materials on the Spirit comics for quite some time, if not the entire thing. That's a part of those comics that I look forward to as much as the comics, and I think it really sets the stage for these late period comic strip reprints that we have that have very robust introductions and afterwards. She kind of set that template with those Spirit comics, I think. Look at that, young Eisner.
Yeah.
With that kind of like old face that like we don't see that anymore, with that slick back hair, and people in old photos look like that.
Yeah, I heard somebody recently talking about that. Like if you watch old movies, like silent era movies, it's almost like the people, they look different, like we've evolved or something in a different direction. Yeah,
I feel like we're just more mutts now and kind of blend, what do you call it, man? Blend cultures and stuff like that. My parents are not the same heritage.
Right. Yeah, probably combined with diet changes too.
Yeah.
Probably combined with everything. We're probably not outside as much. These pages are just beautiful, though. Certainly the showcase, and you see them up front, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is the new stuff. This is the spotlight on it. And then filling it out. It's a shame that this isn't... you could almost imagine if this magazine comes out 10 years later, it's the Kirby Collector. Like maybe it runs for 80 issues.
Yeah, the cool thing is he's got his own hand on it. These are the first dozen or dozen and a half of Spirit daily strips, which was kind of a revelation to me. I was at Eids digging up comics, and I got a bunch of single issues of Spirit daily strips.
Yeah, this is new to me. That's kind of cool to think about, because like a lot of the stuff I associate with him are like page layouts and things, and you go to the daily format and it's a different beast.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm curious to read him talk about this.
I think that this magazine was probably a year or two ahead of its time, because it did start coming out in about 85, probably worked on in 84. 86 is really when the game changes, and you can really kind of show off. And look, Dennis Kitchen got the he got the rights, man. Poorhouse Press ain't getting it no more. I think this is a famous cover.
I think I have this one.
And I always think of that as Will Eisner.
Right.
Kind of just watching a kid. There's a melancholy to this illustration that is kind of burned into my mind. That is a very Floridian outfit too, right? And how about like the lighting? It's so good. Both sets of my grandpaps had that exact attire.
I've been looking at single page comics.
Yeah.
Or like gag, I don't even know what to call them, but like a one image thing.
Right.
The cover reminds me of that, where it's like you're putting storytelling in a single image.
Yeah.
And it feels like a different beast because you also linger on it. Like you read it differently than you would a page or a strip.
Yeah. Shop Talk with Jack Davis.
Kurtzman is in this one too.
That's a very interesting. Is it? Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, because like Davis, for all of his positives, he really is just he's a job guy. Like he's an illustrator, he's a drawer.
Yeah, I often think he's the best illustrator to come out of EC.
Yeah, definitely a diverse hand that could do whatever is required.
And I mean, like doing stuff into the 2000s.
Oh,
I remember he had art. I think it was the Atlanta airport or somewhere, not that long ago, where it's like, man, that guy has a career for 60 years plus doing illustration on a high level.
And I think that his neighborhood, like his town, there's a lot of menus and stuff that have Jack Davis artwork and stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, laundromat logos and stuff. Look at this one, dude. It's almost all original comics material.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this before we start recording. One pagers, we believe, were probably SVA, some kind of like illustration for his SVA course, but such a cool idea. It's just stories that revolve around telephone, which, huge technology, life-changing technology that really became popularized and widespread in Eisner's life, but the chance to do like one-page variety of stories around that theme.
Which could be very boring to communicate. There's a wrong way to do it. And then our swan song with the famous Charlie Sheen phrase at the tippity top there, man.
And they're back to the saddle stitch format.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you get the sense, like, these are chock full, these things are robust. It's thinner and losing some steam. When those numbers come back, that matters sometimes, man. That could hurt the ego a piece. And then it's time to kind of regroup and figure out what to do next. But it's cool that these last two, it's all original material. Probably a gallant effort to really try to drum up the eyeballs and the audience to kind of keep this thing going, but that does not happen.
This is also the thing, if you're watching at home and you're adding to your collection, these final couple issues might be the ones that you just gotta have because it's all Eisner and it's some short stories. It's a good way to read Eisner, a nice presentation, bigger than he's usually printed too, so you really get to enjoy his art, which always impresses me, his late era art. It's some of my favorite of his, and it's like you would expect that's when you start to fall off,
right?
And he just doesn't.
Right.
Amazing.
So when we had the last big Ides sale, this was something that I put together while I was digging around in their magazine bins, and I wanted to do a view from 100 feet of the series, but at some point, Jimmy, I think we need to knock each of these off, one at a time, over some period, man, because we're students of the game, and this old fort can teach us a couple things, man.
Yes, like he's taught many generations of comics, and would make a great playlist having these things down issue by issue for sure.
Good to go?
Yep.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. It's Kayfabe-tober, and these are your drawing prompts. Make sure that you tag us, add us, and let us know when you put together some drawings so that we can share those on our social media, give you a signal boost, and maybe grow your followers as time goes by. We have about 1,500 videos out there right now on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Might have covered some of your favorites. So with that in mind, why don't you give the channel a search for your favorites? Check out those episodes. And if we didn't talk about your favorite comics, let us know what they are. The King Kayfabers on our Patreon have snapped up all the cheapest copies of Will Eisner Quarterly before we even put these videos out, because they get the vids first, but also they're hanging out with us on these live stream recording sessions. So if that fear of missing out is getting to you, or if you weren't able to find a comic that we showed off, become a King Kayfaber. And without further ado, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. Before you is a little sample of our bibliographies. But we are working cartoonists, and we are working our butt off to bring you the coolest comics possible. Jimmy, tell the people what you got coming up.
Street Angel Princess of Poverty is my next Image Comics release. It'll be out in November. You need to let your comic shop know you want a copy now. You know how the system works. You got to order them ahead of time, so let the comic shop know how many of these we need to print. And this is a companion piece to Deadliest Girl Alive. It prints all the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive, and together it'll be the complete set of Street Angel comics that exist up to this point. Should look nice together on your shelf. I've also been self-publishing lately, and I've got a sale coming up October 26th on jimrugg.com, my website. I will be selling all of these self-published works, true crime funnies, 3 nonfiction stories, including 2 wrestling yarns, one featuring Andy Warhol and Dusty Rhodes. The BW zine, celebrating the black and white explosion comics that I love so much from the 80s. Huge inspiration for me when I started finding them, and I still love them. And 1986 zine, maybe the biggest year in comics history. A lot changed that year, a lot of excitement that year, and the 1986 zine is highlighting all of that stuff. So mark your calendars. October 26th is when those are going to go on sale, and there are limited numbers, so hopefully I got enough for everybody, but be the first ones in line, not the last ones.
The time is here. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is hitting store shelves October 18th. Here's the thing. About 75% of this print run has been snapped up by the early adopters already. So if you've been dragging your feet, please put your name on a copy at your local comic shop, Amazon, wherever, because these are going quick. And we anticipate a sellout within a week or two of the books even hitting the store shelves. Best book I ever made. Please add it to your library just in time for the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and it happens to be the 10-year anniversary of the Hip Hop Family Tree. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback is coming to you in November, collecting all of my X-Men Grand Design comics. Some of those are out of print. So this is your way to get all of my X-Men Grand Design in one handy-dandy volume. That is, it's not the price of the omnibus, which is sold out anyhow. The current projects that I've been working on, Red Room. 2 trade paperbacks of that are out there on the stands right now. The Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. You could start at either place because these stories are pretty much self-contained. Some characters might happen to wander through other issues, but every issue is completely self-contained. There's going to be a 3rd trade paperback of Red Room coming out in January. It's called Crypto Killers. It'll have the same kind of red cover gory motif. You're not going to be able to miss it, but use that Christmas money, use that Hanukkah money to a good cause, which is murder on the dark web for fun and profit. The books are the most important thing to keep the channel rocking, but there are some other ways that you can support Cartoonist Kayfabe directly. Jimmy, please let the people know.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. It'll keep you up to date on where we're appearing, what's coming up, things of that nature. You can also pick up Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under the video in the show notes.
There you have it. A bunch of ways to support the channel. Keep these videos coming to you on a regular basis. Before we get out of here, Jimmy, give the people their final marching orders so that we could be on our way.
Make more comics.
All right.
How about this for King Kayfaber talk? People trying to buy the Will Eisner Portrait of a Sequential Artist. $150 to $200 for the Blu-ray, I guess on eBay and aftermarket. It's still on sale at the publisher site, $25.94 shipped, according to Caleb Richards. How do that always confuses me, where you'll see like the spiked price. How do they do that?
Because the audience goes to Amazon and eBay first. They don't go to these publishers. If you go to the IDW website and go down the list of artist editions, you could get artist editions that cost $800 in the aftermarket. They still have stock.
Yeah.
And
weird.
People just were so conditioned to like Amazon, eBay, that supply and demand, like Amazon doesn't have any copies. It's just sellers who have them, so you could set the prices, and people go for it.
That's so interesting to me.
Perfect timing. Think we could get 3 vids, Jimmy?
We're gonna give it a shot.
Hopefully the supercharge will give us a bunch. Can you plug in my iPad, Jim?
Yep.
Need a water?
No, I still have mine. Gonna be looking back into a heritage catalog. Everybody found I've been working through the stack that somebody sent us. Found something interesting in this one. So I don't know how many people are on the heritage mailing list, but interesting stuff that they're putting out for sure.
Pulling up the link to the chat room right now. Steve Rude selling them for cover price, but wasn't the cover price still like $300? Pretty expensive book to begin with. Tall Matt, yes, I have been thinking about getting some comic strip guys, and I think Patrick is it McDonald or McConnell?
McConnell.
I think he would probably be the guy to get
McDonald.
Yeah. We better get that part straight. But
cut that, King Kayfabe.
But he would probably be high on the list. And then a lot of them see, like when me and Jimmy get together, the responsibility is to try to like get maximum value out of the collaboration. So we got to go for the kind of like the big willies. But just in my own time, there are guys who I don't think a whole lot of the audience will support in a giant way, but who deserve to have a conversation. I'll probably just do that stuff on my own time. But also, I got to keep my daily strips going, man. So finding that extra time is not... there's a premium. There's a premium on my time. Only so many hours in a day. But I do think I'm going to do more... live streams as I draw pages.
Yeah, good response on that.
Yeah. You know what it does too, Jimmy, and I say it in that stream, is that there's a little bit of an accountability thing that can happen because the camera's there and you don't want to be like kind of going on your phone with a camera like right there, so I just stay drawing and I don't kind of get caught up in what Coach Prime has to say or some nonsense. They lost last Saturday.
Yeah, badly. It's so fascinating to see the stories that come out. Like one of the ones that I saw was the coaches that are trading information, basically giving Oregon information.
Right.
And, I have no idea the validity of that. If that may be something that happens on every level. I think people used to do that with the Patriots and stuff. But it's just interesting to see, like, once the media is in on Colorado, how do you have what stories come out?
Right.
kind of love it. I used to love sports writing, and that stuff, there just isn't as much of it anymore. But
Yeah, Mitch Albom.
yeah. Well, oh man, how can I forget the Pittsburgh great, the terrible towel inventor,
Myron Cope.
Myron Cope. You know, Myron Cope, is as great as he was as a television personality or a radio voice, would always talk about his writing was like what he took pride in.
Oh, that's cool. I actually had no idea.
And you can find old writing, like boxing writing is some great writing, like the old timers would write about boxing, and it was a real thing. You know, it was almost like, be like Hemingway. You know, it's sports writing.
Yeah,
was a genre.
There was a man, maybe it was the John Goodman Babe movie or something, but it shows the crowd, and you see the dudes with the manual. Like there's like a couple of bleachers that are just the dudes writing articles while they're watching a game. Good to go.
Yeah.
Remember Kayfabe Tober.
Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Want to remind everybody before we dive into this episode, it is Kayfabe Tober time. We have assembled a list of prompts that we think will bring out the best in all of our great creative followers. There should be some prompts on here that you guys look forward to and have a lot of fun with. And I think there'll be a few prompts, hopefully, that will challenge you guys to come up with some interesting ideas. Make sure you tag us in the drawings that you make from the Cartoonist Kayfabe Tober list here. And always look forward to this, Ed. It's becoming an annual tradition here on Cartoonist Kayfabe, and I look forward to seeing what our talented audience comes up with this year. I also want to remind everybody that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are different levels that will get you access to our videos ahead of the general population, and at the King Kayfaber level, you will have access to all of our videos first because you will sit in on the recording session. We have a room full of cartoonist King Kayfabers right now watching us, helping out, filling in information for us, giving requests, and just having a general back and forth as we go through the recording of these episodes. And if you pick up a book first, it may offset the cost of joining the Patreon because you will have access to these books first before they spike in price or disappear on the aftermarket. And finally, we are a daily video series about comic books here on YouTube. We have about 1,500 videos that you can go through and look for your favorites. If you hit the little magnifying glass search bar on our homepage on YouTube, you can search all of our 1,500 videos for your favorite comics or creators. And if you come up empty, let us know who you'd like to see us add to our list of books that we need to read. All right, so today we are going to look at another Heritage Comic Art Auction. This is a platinum session, but they put these out several times a year. And these are deluxe, basically artist edition 4-color printing quality of the samples that are going to be in their auctions. I guess these platinum sessions are some of the highest grade comics are part of these platinum sessions. Look at this too, like right away. You can see this is the A list of auction stuff.
Yeah,
but,
so there's no better grade quality copy of this issue of Adventure Comics out there that anybody knows about.
Right. And you can see the table of contents here. We're going to have comics for the first 34 pages, and then we get into the comic art. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because there is a treasure in this particular issue, and that's the reason that we're doing this one. We had a King Kayfaber send us a bunch of Heritage auction catalogs. I was unaware of these things until, I don't know, 3 months ago. I got a stack of them that I've been going through like a couple a week since then, and all kinds of treasures. And when I say the A-level stuff, Jim Lee Scott Williams' Batman triple gatefold cover. How about that for a pretty sharp piece? And like I said, it's 4-color. If you look close, you can see a little bit of that yellowing, but you can also see the little bits of like white media on top of this artwork. So pretty cool. And who does a fold out for your catalogs?
Yeah.
This is, these are the big willies that are bidding on this stuff. But here is the reason that we are making an episode. Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man number 16. This is the crossover with X-Force. We have looked at some of these issues, and it'd be one thing if all we had was the cover of this issue, but we actually have the entire contents of this issue are reproduced at this artist edition level. So
we're going to find out if the Juggernaut page has paste-ups or redraws or what is the deal?
Absolutely. You know, the only trade-off is I wish these were bigger, of course. You know, the one thing that the artist editions have going for them. But the flip side is one of the great features in these heritage catalogs are these write-ups. There are notes on every single, well, maybe not every page, but the majority of the pages and all these Spider-Man pages, you get a little bit of notes, and it's something that I've really come to like as I go through these. Part of the reason I only look at a couple of these a week is because I'm reading these notes.
Right.
It's almost like historical notes. Sometimes it's about the media itself, the size of the work, things of that nature. So
one of the things that Todd would do often with his Spider-Man is have the foot kind of overlap the ankle, and they often say that, like, you know, you want to be able to kind of silhouette your figure to kind of like get it to make sense, and like that overlap would always, the way he does it, there's something about the way he does it that makes it feel just like flat, so it's like there's like a little nub there.
Yeah, it's interesting. They talk about that silhouette shape. If you threw tracing paper on here and filled this in black, just
Right.
the shape, it would be very strange.
Yeah, it's just like a little nub leg.
Yeah, interesting. And how about this, man? The 2-page spread of the Juggernaut.
Spider-Man presenting his keister all open with that back arch.
Yeah, you might get in trouble for that pose nowadays.
Yeah, right.
Look at the weird marks that he adds, like the McFarlaneisms and the inks, where this is one of those things I don't feel like people that tried to emulate him picked up on this stuff, because how could you? It feels so organic, the choices that he's making, and then you go from like that kind of armor onto the bazillion lines that are all over the hands and knuckles and things. It's a pretty unique style. Nobody really copied it successfully, in my opinion.
Yeah, but like, it also it doesn't make any sense. Like the point of
True.
the point of hatching is to create a gray value, but like these lines there, from the moon, it'll turn those lines gray. You know, from 50 paces, those lines will become gray. And by the way, that's the stuff that the old timers at the time would just not understand and be so aggravated about, because it doesn't communicate anything, and it's very flat. You know, like he's trying to do a little bit of that Scott Williams stuff, and somehow Williams is able to kind of add a little 3D to the Jim Lee of this era, but that is just flattens out the shoulder a whole lot.
You see a tiny bit of blue too, which I never associated with him as drawing in blue.
Yeah.
But you can see like different places, so maybe something he was trying, experimenting with, maybe something that stuck. I'm not sure.
It's a time saver. You gotta, if you're using gray pencil, you gotta erase that. And this guy's doing a monthly book that he's also writing, so like a NASCAR pit crew, you want to kind of carve off as much time as you can, and the blue pencil's a good way to do that if you can, in your mind's eye, conceptualize what it looks like darker.
I always enjoyed whenever he would draw a different character, you know, not Spider-Man, but some other character that I liked. But also you would see kind of like through some of his style shortcomings at times, you know, whenever he's taking on these other characters that he's unfamiliar with, you might see a little bit of a Play-Doh-y form, or, you know, odd proportions and things like that. We have looked at this storyline before, and it still stands out to me. You know, this is the World Trade Towers that are being, in this case, I mean, it's hard to not think of 9/11 whenever you see that image. But if you get past that, I'm so impressed with the use of like the 3-point perspective, which we look at, and which is in like How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. You learn it at an early age, but applying it, not always an easy application. I think he nails it here for that sense of like, wow, that's a tall building.
Yeah. Is it really 91 when this comes out? Because the trade centers, they got bombed,
Yes.
but I think that was in 93. Like, I think that's after
Yeah, it might have been
they
sometime
made
in the early
this.
90s,
So,
but you're right.
yeah.
It might have been 93.
I was so proprietary about my guys back then, you know, and Todd was my guy, like, for Spider-Man, but Rob was my guy for X-Force, and in my opinion, nobody could draw those characters right except Rob Liefeld. So when I would see this, I would just like slough it off, and when I would have my arguments with buddies in school, there were a couple guys that I could have that conversation with about McFarlane versus Rob Liefeld, and I would use this issue and say, look, man, Todd can't even draw X-Force right, because these characters would show up in those House of Pain, Shatter Shot, like these X annual crossovers and stuff, and then you would see, you know, Alex Saviuk, and I think Ernie Steiner drew one, actually.
Yeah, it could be.
Where you see just kind of the job guy style for X-Force, and it never works.
Yeah, and it's funny to think of this issue too, like you talk about him doing a monthly book, but also This is his last issue, and I assume he knew that going into this issue, even though the Juggernaut eye thing is something that we hear about.
Yeah,
I have a feeling he knew this was it, and you wonder if he's racing through here because some of these faces are so kind of bizarre, but also it's just like the McFarlane energy, like dump it on the page, dump it on these character designs, push everything to a 10. And I mean, that was the trademark that I liked in his work. It also strikes me how different his page layouts are, where these aren't grid layouts.
No, not at all. He was never one for that stuff. And this idea of them pushing like the landscape format for because Rob's issue of X-Force had this same thing. I get the sense that they kind of pushed things in a lot of ways with the publisher and had great success. We're more than a year into the Spider-Man run, and I'm sure the diminishing returns after issue number 1 were still pretty freaking high. So they could ask for this, and if they would have kept with Marvel, I wonder, like, they would have started asking for more weird shit, because like this is very weird. This doesn't make any sense, and it's not like that great issue of Swamp Thing where the lettering turns and then it has an effect storytelling wise.
Sure,
because
the
there's
drug,
like
kind of the drug psychedelic.
Exactly, and then it weaves back into the story. This is just artifice, which is the Image guys. There's nothing of like tremendous substance underneath what they're doing. It's all kind of on the surface.
This page is the perfect backdrop for what you just said, because we have Warpath screaming attack and Juggernaut being like, "You guys are dumber than cows being led to slaughter. You guys."
Shakespeare wrote that.
It calls to mind the John Byrne Fantastic Four Sideways issue too.
Oh, I don't know.
And I wonder if that's one of the references, one of the ideas behind it. I could see somebody like Rob Liefeld, a fanboy at heart. I could see him like having that in his head of like, that was a cool gimmick. Let's try that. It works really well for some of this stuff. You in many ways, like a horizontal issue for Cannonball flying, pretty great.
Right.
And even like flying out of the background and then cutting across the page. Awesome setup.
Yeah. The other thing about comics, it's, illustrations with storytelling value. There ain't no story being told here, man. There's really not.
Count the number of teeth at home on Juggernaut. Maybe take a shot for everyone once you get past like 30 or whatever.
It's a good 3D effect.
Yeah, you see the heavier line weights as you go back.
It really works.
Cutting them off. I like the juxtaposition of like the profile of Cannonball, all of his teeth, smiling, and then Juggernaut just getting ready to handle this. I remember this was a cool moment reading it as a kid.
Yeah, that thin lip was always kind of bothered me, the shape of that. But you look at it; it's cartooning. This was a favorite panel of mine. Yes. Absolutely.
It's such a great effect of like the ricochet, hitting the immovable object of Juggernaut, and it's great. Like there's no motion in Juggernaut at all. That is a brick wall.
There's a lot going on here that you could just dash over, man. But McFarlane talks about it whenever he gives public talks about trying to communicate as much 3D on a 2D surface as possible by overlapping things. So he has a smoke going in front and behind. He's got some business with like the street signs, some bricks. Sometimes that stuff will be behind the speed line, but he's definitely making a point to put things in front of it. And just like all the kind of schmutz all over. Like I think he was influenced by stuff like Akira at this point, because he certainly, Steve Olive and all of that, he brings those guys on board to Image, and I think that had some influence.
It reminds me, we looked at Michael Golden, that for annual where the airplane or the helicopter's landing and blowing trees away, and I feel like it's so great, like capturing the speed with the environment around it reacting.
Yeah, one of the things I thought you were going to mention with the Michael Golden stuff was that Hulk versus Spider-Man story that had great rubble.
Rubble. McFarlane always did rubble well. How about the stars around Cannonball here as a comic book language piece?
Not afraid to cartoon.
Yes.
Not afraid to cartoon. And it's an interesting thing because like he doesn't bring that to Spawn, because Spawn is so goth and demons and hardcore. And it's also more into the 90s, where the 90s was starting to kind of codify itself to what it was, and angsty and hardcore. And you just couldn't get away with that kind of thing. Do you
really good shot of your Twin Towers here, very iconic.
With this kind of black and some of that stuff, it feels like there's a different hand at work. You know, like look at that hair.
You know what? It's possible, but I was looking at like these marks, and those to me almost look like Sharpie or marker or something. A couple of the heavier blacks.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like a different mark than the Hunt 102 that we see a lot. And so again, it could be a speed thing. You know, it could be that he is using a marker or something on some of these spots and really kind of racing through it. Be funny to do a count on these pages and get an average of panels per page going through the story, because it feels like the average might be like 3, maybe even a little bit under 3 panels a page.
I don't think it ever hits 4. Jimmy, you may or may not know this from reading this bit of business, but is each page a lot, or is it all going for?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. Huh? It's a good question. That's one that I should have probably looked into. I would hate to think that you break this up to have a complete issue, and it's McFarlane's last Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that he's done any Spider-Man. I think he did a cover for like an Overstreet price guide or something with Spider-Man on it, but this is pretty much the last McFarlane Spider-Man, so to have it all intact, it'd be nice.
It's kind of wild how with the spider webs and the windows, it really flattens out because it's almost the same value of gray at this kind of thumbnail size.
Yeah, I like seeing him do figures at much different distance also, because that's stuff that probably, I think this was printed on newsprint, you know, so like those super fine lines, this would have been just kind of background barely detail.
Yeah, print started getting better. It started getting better.
Hey, you talk about Liefeld drawing the X-Force characters and them not looking right. I think you can see it in Cable. To me, like Cable was a character nobody really could do to Liefeld's level, at least in my eyes. But Gideon looks better here, I think, than he does in New Mutants.
I don't know, man. That hair.
Look at those eyebrows.
That hair is soft, man. It's like a pony mane. It's like My Little Pony. Is there? There's like a big Cable 2-pager. Was that page 1?
No, it's common.
His colored shadows that he does that I hate, but I like when Mignola does it. Mm-hmm. So he's not able to take the right lessons.
He does a couple things in this because Spider-Man, he's not filling in the blacks, so I think that's also the color shadow. You know, you'd think either the foreground or the background, one of them make it black, and let the other one be the color shadows as opposed to both. But
yeah, but I think it's very clear that we need to get through this page as quick as possible, but you want to put something there for the kids to enjoy. So you get this right there. You get the screen door. Looks like a paste up lettering piece fell off.
A really nice showcase of his cartooning. You see it a lot in these expressions that are just over the top cartoony expressions, but something I like about McFarlane's art is that cartoon element. Yeah,
not really pushing the compositions on that page too much. This is far more interesting. And then look at him getting his depth with just like that little smoke. That's something you could really pull from. You know, Joe Kubert would do this exact thing where it would be a still moment, but he would just have it would be a little dust or a little piece of wind kind of breaking things up. And when it's done the best, I think of like a Mignola or somebody. You know, you're putting a white in front of a black area.
Yes.
Some more cartooning.
Mm-hmm. And there's your big Cable. You can see it's a 2-pager, so it still maintains the sideways piece. They used to do so much of this where like you would get to page 2 and 3 and it'd be a double page splash, but it'd be sideways.
Right.
This is probably the one place where it works well and it's not a problem compared to the rest of the issue.
It's a big Cable, but like the way his mouth hangs open.
There's a lot of oddness on that Cable. I was thinking earlier too, like a very thick head of hair for Cable, and I think of like those early Liefeld Cables was like the receding hairline with that skinny patch in the front.
Kind of has that shape, and he remembers inking it with the black stripes in his joint. Man,
I was always disappointed in this Cable version.
This would be what I would use in my argument, and I think about what Rob must have thought at the time, man, because like Extinction Agenda is done. And you get to see Jim Lee draw Cable a couple of times in the cards and stuff. And then you got your homeboy McFarlane drawing Cable. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, we need an Eric Larson Cable out there. I was looking at this and I was like, is that Storm? Did Storm make a guest appearance? It's Banshee.
Siren.
Siren, right. But it looks so much like Storm in that picture, like a Jim Lee Storm showing up. All right, Ed, we're getting to our big controversial page and panel here. Sword is heading into an eyeball, a very flat eyeball, by the way. It almost looks like a projection. the way those eyes are.
Yeah, right.
Not a lot of depth in that helmet. And you can see the paste up.
I see.
It's on the board itself, the revised panel. The original version, controversially, is the sword going into the helmet. What a weird shape for that. That whole thing is very off.
I was thinking that this would be a good tracing paper joint to kind of draw the head underneath, but the Juggernaut helmet sucks. Like to try to figure out how a human head like fits inside that, because it's this like very like oblong, long kind of shape that is kind of like a weird kind of egg that doesn't form factor to a human head at all. So like, is there just a lot of space inside that mask? Like it's a very complicated thing to like wrap your head around if you're trying to think. Like I can't imagine how Brian Bolland would draw a Juggernaut, because like he's a very thoughtful, like trying to see through the images and stuff. So like there's not too much you could do. It's a weird helmet.
Hey, how weird is this for directional flow? We have Shatterstar going from right to left, almost back into the action. And then whenever we cut, we have him going from left to right, these two panels.
Yeah, and then the blood comes back left.
Yeah, kind of a funny choice, because I feel like you could flip this panel of Juggernaut and you would have everything still line up right.
Yeah, maybe it's very left heavy to do it that way or something. You probably want to flip the Shatterstar up top.
I always loved this image, like with the damaged eye peeking through, but that hand like holding his face, I always thought was a super cool, well done panel. And I love whenever you incorporate something like this as your panel border as the wham sound effect.
Yeah, you think that's him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I assume it is. It's pretty basic. That lettering's not real heavy lifting, and why not? It'd be hard to have a letterer figure that out, I think, for you.
Plus, it probably requires like another set of FedExing.
Yeah.
It's not like Rick Parker's chilling at Seattle or wherever the heck he was living. Vancouver Island.
Here's a note, not Rick Parker lettering on this particular story. I think he lettered all the other McFarlane Spider-Man stuff. This is Chris Eliopoulos.
Oh, he's a West Coaster, right?
May also speak to Deadline stuff and who knows what. I think there was a fill-in issue right before this issue, so there may have been some stuff going on.
That's right. And you know what? That's an issue that I have pulled. It's the Spider-Man Beast story, I think, that Eric Larson did. Right?
Yeah.
That's the fill-in. Like I have that pulled to be an episode at some point in the future.
Yeah, that was a good issue too. That's definitely one I would look at. And another 2-page spread here to wrap things up. Basically surviving, and McFarlane even signs off. To all you readers of the past few years, thanks. It's been a blast. Todd McFarlane. Little spider next to his signature there.
So I think even in the letter column, like Salakrup is saying that, or Todd is saying like he's done, he's gonna go be with his family, blah blah blah. And of course I was picking every issue of this up off the newsstand, and when I read that stuff, I'm like, okay, like I have a chunk of Todd McFarlane comics to enjoy. He's done. Maybe he's older than I thought, whatever, because like you never saw these guys or anything. I was never playing with trade magazines and stuff, so he was retired to me. And it would be, still in grade school, and then deep in middle school, maybe 7th, 8th grade. Nah, not quite that long, but maybe 7th grade. That's when the football jocks had the Image comics, and I saw Spawn and McFarlane's signature, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I'm like, I see Jim Lee's Wildcats, and then I see Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, and all these guys that I thought quit making comics have their own umbrellas, they're doing their own thing, and there was a year and a half, which would have been 10% of my life. They disappeared, and then I got all these comics back, and then I forced myself to love them. Like, oh yeah, these are so great.
Well, there it is, the original artwork from Todd McFarlane's last Spider-Man number 16. Like I said, I continue to go through these heritage catalogs looking for stuff like this. And honestly, we could probably look through every single one of them because they're just loaded with cool stuff. So, here's a cut. Look, the very next page, Mike Mignola doing the cover for the Robin death issue. Like, heavy hitters throughout these heritage catalogs.
I got some numbers from the chat room. They went on the heritage site to see, because this is from 2022.
Yes.
And West Coast Day Avengers came back. The total before the hammer fee, which is usually 25%, the total pages, all the pages went for a grand total of $1,380,000.
Well, there you go. 1 million plus artwork we just showed you guys. Wow.
Yeah. Let's see. It was sold as individual pages.
Whew, man, talk about like probably some big bidders going at each other, because you get the first couple of pages and then you're in, man. Mortgage the house, mortgage the yacht.
Yeah, it's interesting because the biggest willies who are known of the original art buyers and stuff, this kind of comic comes after their interest. The Dave Mandels and stuff. They're not really interested in this, but like the people who would be are like rich motherfuckers who are like our ages, and so like maybe Kirkman scooped up some pages, and dudes of that kind of like stripe, maybe well, no, I don't think that dude, but I bet Kirkman got his hand on a couple of choice items here.
I bet you the dude that bought that Amazing Spider-Man 328, the $600,000 cover, that's Spider-Man Hulk. Like, I bet you that guy was lingering around in this auction. I
still call so much kayfabe on that because of the way it was promoted and how inflated it was. I think that Todd McFarlane had a proxy bidder. I think he bid it himself. I think he took the hit on the hammer fees and shit, because it now makes your art much more valuable. Like I've done 2 auctions myself, and very rich people who know how this game is played offered to play that game, and I was like, nah, dude, I just want to see how my shit exists on the market without any shenanigans. But shenanigans is done, and McFarlane buys $1 million baseballs. Like, why not buy your own page for $600K through a proxy?
Do you think it's a Shamus family that's selling this art? Remember in one of the Wizards, they talk about McFarlane's biggest art deal was a deal with Gareb Shamus's family, and he got a bunch of hockey memorabilia.
Yes.
And traded a bunch of comics art.
Yeah.
And it would have been after he was done with Spider-Man, I believe. I think it was around that Wizard.
It was Wizard issue 1, and I think that when they talk about that stuff, and I think there's still Spider-Man's coming out.
Okay. That's near the end.
Yeah, it is. It is. Super fun.
Yeah, I love these heritage catalogs.
Good to go, Jimmy?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. It is Kayfabe-tober season 2023. These are your drawing prompts. Take a screen grab, save it on your phone so that you know what you need to draw each day, and make sure that you tag us in that imagery so that we can share those drawings on our social media. Give you a good boost, and we have a pretty robust social media presence at this point. Probably give you a chunk of followers if you put in some effort. We have the Patreon, where the King Kayfabers are getting their hands on the things that we talk about on our daily videos before anybody else, because they get the vids before anyone. And we have this live stream recording session that we have put together where they get to see what we're talking about before we even edit videos. What else? What else am I missing? We're a daily YouTube channel, and we might have talked about some of your favorite We're a daily YouTube channel, and we might have talked about some of your favorite comics at this point. We have more than 1,500 videos on the channel as we speak. So take a look. Hit the magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel. Search for your favorite titles. Check out those videos. And if we didn't talk about your favorites, then please let us know in the comments below. We'll push those comics higher up on our reading pile. The videos are brought to you by the books that we make. And before you is a robust little snippet of our bibliography. But we're working and making new stuff all the time. So, Jimmy, show the people what you got coming out.
Street Angel, Princess of Poverty will be in stores in late November. You can pre-order that one now, and you need to pre-order that one now. The way the comics direct market system works, you got to order these in advance. Let Image know how many of these to print. Princess of Poverty will collect all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive.
Can I have some breaking news, man? The cover alone for that issue, I guess, Went for $480,000
Wow.
for that issue 16 of.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, sorry, Jimmy. Go
No
ahead.
problem. Deadliest Girl Alive and Princess of Poverty together will make a set of all of the Street Angel comics that I have created up to this point, and it'll be the first time that that's all together in a set under the same publishing umbrella. So add that one to your collection if you haven't already. Let your store know that you need a copy. I have been self-publishing lately. The BW zine, the 1986 zine, and True Crime Funnies featuring 3 nonfiction stories, including 2 wrestling stories of mine. These will be available and on sale at my website, jimrugg.com, October 26th. It's going to be kind of a fall holiday sale. I am putting everything together now, so hopefully I'll have enough for popular demand, but I recommend you guys get there first, not last, because I do have a finite amount of these things. And if you can't wait until then, you can read a lot of my out-of-print zines and mini-comics on patreon.com/jimrugg.
The time is here. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming to you October 18th, and about 75% of this print run is accounted for already before the book has even come out, thanks to you, the Cartoonist Kayfabe audience. Thank you so much. What that means is if you had any interest in this book at all, please go to your comic shop, go on Amazon, whatever's convenient for you, and stake your claim in Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus printing number 1, because once this goes away, it's going to take months for a second printing to show up at your comic shop. And what happened with the first issue, the first volume of Hip Hop Family Tree came out around the same time, Christmas time, and it was going for $100 for people who wanted it in time for Christmas. So jump on it sooner than later, because there will be some inflated prices for a little while. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback is coming to you in November, collecting all of my X-Men Grand Design works. Some of those are out of print, so this is your way to get all of the X-Men Grand Design comics I made in one package. Red Room has been the focus of my attention for the past couple of years. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. 2 trade paperbacks are out there, Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. 3rd trade paperback called Crypto Killers is coming to you in January. So scoop that up with your Christmas and or Hanukkah money. The books are the most important part required to keep this channel coming to you on a regular basis. But there are some ways to support Cartoonist Kayfabe directly. And Jimmy, please let the people know.
You can subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video in the show notes.
There you have it. Jimmy, please give the people their final marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Make more comics.
After we do 86, I think we should move.
Okay.
And then we'll just do that last video. So the last.
Why don't we do the last video? I'll do my own 86 video at home because I don't want to set up and
Okay.
then be fighting traffic on the way home.
Okay.
And I don't plan to release that 86 video till the end of October whenever the sale goes up.
Okay.
So it's not urgent.
Okay. So
Yes.
so I should probably record this then, right? I think like I did
No.
3.
I'll record it I'll record it probably early next week, so it'll just be its own thing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Boy, these make me nervous. I keep looking at Valiants, hoping to find that treasure. They're not the way I remember them, Ed.
No, it doesn't.
There's some fun stuff in here, though. Maybe
doesn't work.
outside the comic. But,
Since we're not recording proper and it's just the King Kayfaber's kicking it with us, I mentioned it when we first looked when we did the first comic with the 2-page spread with that cable. And he's got his kind of jaw hanging out and stuff like that. And this is not nice, but I do think that it is accurate. When Roger Ebert had jaw cancer, his mouth was just gaping. And he would like wear these. So even that cable has kind of like a little gimmick under his throat, and the mouth is hanging open exactly the same way late period Roger Ebert post jaw surgery. Look, so I didn't want to make the joke about it on the thing, but every time I see that, since I saw those, even when that image of Cable is so burnt into my head for like looking wrong and odd and stuff, when I saw Roger Ebert photos and stuff, that Cable image came to my mind because it's kind of a smile to it, and it's like divorced from the bone, like because it's just hanging.
I'm gonna have to look up that
Roger Ebert joint.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a picture.
Here, I'm gonna show you real quick, man. Oh my goodness. Like, that's a pretty good one.
Which piece is it?
The 2-page spread.
Oh, the 2-page spread. Yeah, I remember being pretty on. It does look like that.
Wow. See, like, look at that, right? It's kind of the shape of it, and it's down. The mouth is down real far. That poor bastard.
It would be like this one,
right?
Where there's the.
It's like, so even that's an evolution, because like he did the neck thing, but like there were no teeth at a certain point. Like that comes later and stuff. Like really that kind of thing. You know, that like he started to get enough that like pushed it up.
This mouth is a very McFarlane-esque mouth.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just so sad because it's like it's a guy.
This is years later, right? There's no way McFarlane.
No,
was
absolutely
watching
not. Yeah,
movie
no,
review
it's
and going
post 2000s.
finding its way in.
Yeah, no, post 2000s. I think both of those poor bastards got cancer, man. Siskel and Ebert.
Those poor dudes.
It's that Josh shit, just like Bobby Heenan. It's like these are raconteurs, man, and you take their voice away.
Yeah, Heenan was a. That's one that I would see.
And I think it's the same issue. Good to go if you are, Jim.
Yeah, hit. Hello and welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
Before we dive into today's video, I want to remind everybody of Cartoonist Kayfabe-tober coming up. Possibly by the time you see this video, it will already be Kayfabe-tober time. This is a list of prompts for this year's drawing for our audience. A lot of creators in our audience. We've had some really fun previous Kayfabe-tobers, and I even enjoy putting together these lists every year, Ed.
Yeah.
Trying to think of stuff that will be fun for everybody to draw. We've got some of my favorites on here. I'm looking forward to things like Nintendo Saturday morning cartoons, 80s black and white explosion, of course, but a whole bunch of different stuff here. Hopefully some of your favorites out there, and hopefully some new stuff for you to challenge yourself creatively. Take a shot of this screen or follow us on social media. You can find it. We'll post the list there, and we'll also share some of these. So be sure and tag us whenever you start doing the Cartoonist Kayfabe-tober 2023. We also have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. There are 3 different levels there that will get you access to our videos ahead of time before we release them to the public. And at the King Kayfaber level, you will get access to all of our videos first because you get to sit in on the recording session as we are speaking right now. We have a room full of Cartoonist King Kayfabers watching us, adding to the conversation, offering insights that we just don't have. So take a minute to look at our Patreon, see which level fits you best, and it'll give you a leg up on the Kayfabe effect. When we look at a book that you want to add to your collection, if it's rare, if it's hard to find, you'll be the first one in line buying it before the prices go up and before it disappears from everybody. Finally, we are a daily comic book YouTube channel. We have been doing this for several years. We have probably 1,500 videos available. If you look on the search box on our YouTube homepage, you can put in your favorite comic book or creator and see if we've already covered them. 1,500 videos, chances are we have looked at the big books that you remember from your comics reading. But if not, let us know what we should add to our reading list. And with that said, let's take a look. Unity. Time is not absolute. This was the big crossover from Valiant in the early 90s. Valiant had been building their superhero universe for probably about a year, maybe a year and a couple of months. And this is Jim Shooter era Valiant. He leaves the company shortly after Unity ends. So it's kind of like the first year, 14, 15 months is the Jim Shooter era for Valiant. It is an era of comics that I know are fondly remembered. We've looked at a few different titles during this time, but Unity was, I think, the big kick down the door and announced to everybody, pay attention to Valiant Universe. And one of the brilliant gimmicks was this first, the issue 0, free. I think you had to order certain minimums if you were the comic shop, but if you met those minimums, you would get a stack of Unity number 0 starting off this 2-month crossover. And kind of brilliant at a time of gimmicks in that speculator boom. What was their gimmick? A free. Give it out. The first dose is free. If you want more, you got to come back.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you will always see these Valiant comics for a quarter or less in these back issue bins. This is why Bill Boyshell goes to, like, you know, estates that are cleaning out and hears that there are 8 long boxes of comics and each long box has maybe 10 to 20 issues of, Magnus Robot Fighter or Exo Manowar or something like that. Jim Shooter, also creator of the basic idea concept of Secret Wars.
Yes.
Which was an effort to get all of the, Marvel canon together under one umbrella. If Spider-Man sells a comic whenever he's a guest star, well, like, what about Spider-Man and Captain America and X-Men and all of those guys? The problem is, man, those were long-standing institutions. At that point, 20-year-old comics that have built a giant equity in American pop culture. So to have them all under one umbrella, total like revolutionary move and very exciting. Maybe we never saw the X-Men meet Incredible Hulk and see them do their thing. This you can't force this kind of thing, but God damn it, if Jim Shooter ain't gonna try.
Yes, and the free issue 0 is not the only smart idea I think he had on this crossover. The first month of issues were all by covers by Frank Miller, made one big image. The second month, Walt Simonson. So they were trying hard. Like, they wanted you to buy all 8 of these books. And at least that's a manageable number compared to where we are today when it comes to crossovers and numbers of titles that are published. I think this was relatively successful at the time. We still, I'm sure we'll get some interesting comments under this video. We still hear from people who are very much fans of this Valiant era. And like I say, in my mind, when Shooter leaves, that's the end of that Valiant era in a lot of ways. I think there was a certain amount of quality control by Shooter at that stage. It was still a small enough imprint that you could kind of have the unified universe concept. But for whatever reason, he is let go and things kind of go down, if it's possible, in quality. How about this? Signed copy. Had no idea it was a signed copy until this week.
Jim Rugg from Indiana University went and got his copy signed by Jim Shooter.
Waited in line? That is not true. Cut that. Who's editing this episode? So here's your basic outline of the Valiant universe as it stood at this time. One of the highlights for me for this issue is Barry Windsor-Smith doing pencils. Barry Windsor-Smith was coming off of a 10-part backup in Solar Man of the Atom. It's collected in a trade paperback. That's maybe the next thing that I look at in an attempt to see, like, why do people love Valiant? I'm trying to answer this question. But I developed the idea for Barry Windsor-Smith art. I'm a big fan of his stuff, but I say pencil, ink, and color. If he does 2 out of 3 of those, you're probably in great shape. If he does 1, there's some room for quality control slippage.
You're right. And Bob Layton on the ink duties here, which, by the way, like this splash, not so bad. Like, there's great volume on her legs and stuff like that, a decent attention to light source. I recently heard, it might have been Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about, like, they've come up with this idea that, like, this is a black hole, that if you can get into the middle of the black hole, like, you can be golden, and, like, on the other side of it, there could be, like, this whole other universe, blah, blah, blah. But if you touch the sides, that's when you get turned to, like, spaghetti. It just, like, rips you apart. So I like to think, this guy's touching the side. But that's what happens. She's getting kind of sucked into a black hole. So what Jim Shooter has built for himself here is an insurmountable task. It's completely not possible to do what he's hoping to do, but he's going to give it a shot. And he's got to get all these characters set up to have this big giant crossover. What do you need for something like that? Like, in a perfect world, you need to know who the characters are, and you need to know what they want. Maybe in superhero comics, the best way to set up an obstacle would be to have a bad guy who maybe wants the same things that the good guys want, but for different purposes. We need to know who these characters are a bit, and how they fit in to this situation, and maybe some of their dynamics between one another. This is 20 pages or something, 22 pages.
It's very thin.
There's not enough real estate to get any of that across, so it comes off extremely thin in content.
I enjoy this sequence. It reminds me of Weapon X in that, how do you do somebody naked?
I know, right?
You can't show anything.
You gotta put the knees over the titties and the elbows over the titties.
A very little bit of debris breaking from when she hits this car.
Isn't that so classic? You could make a zine of that.
Yeah, you could.
Where
yes,
like
you
a
could.
little piece of broken glass like covers a titty nipple.
Yes. Shadows in the same place. You know, the other comic I almost pulled out was Wildstorm Rising, which is the Wildstorm Jim Lee big crossover that I think is only maybe a year after this, and Barry Windsor Smith draws it too. And talk about like getting further removed from, I think, his comfort levels in terms of character design. Like, it just is stranger and stranger seeing him tackle this. This is a character that's kind of like a mirror of Solar in a lot of ways. That's why you're seeing these like crossing universes and black holes and time and everything. And there are actually two of her. So we get into like the multiverse concepts here as well.
It's too much.
It's a lot.
It's too much. And I do remember the Solar comics that will have like 3 different Solars, and there's like, you know, the 90s extreme version, and you know, this is a classic.
This is a Geomancer. Boy, this is going to be a fun comment. Like people are going to comment and be really angry at some of this stuff. But this is a Geomancer character who's kind of, I guess, can travel around this multiverse type thing, but also can see the future and past and all these different things. So basically, he's explaining exposition.
So
Jeffrey, the exposition mancer.
the other Jim Shooter tenet is every comic is somebody's first comic.
Yes, I actually love that one.
And he's never swayed from that, and it's something that I agree with. So, but this is maybe the biggest example of every comic is somebody's first comic, because it's all explanation. This does not excite me to read Unity.
You weren't ready to pick up part.
Here's one thing.
I don't know if this is part 0.
Yeah, it is. And then the final one, like issue 1, is the epilogue to the whole scenario. So like, I know on the back it tells us what issues are what, but I don't think I saw Turok mentioned in any of that. So is this like a precursor to build to Turok?
Yes, yeah, I think that's one of the things that comes out of this. There's a couple of they're really launching some books. So Turok's going to come out of it. Archer and Armstrong, I think their first issues are tie-ins.
So is Eternal Warrior.
I think Geomancer gets his own book, but I think that's down the line. You know, Shooter was not giving him his own book. Maybe that was the problem with Shooter and management.
Yeah. It wasn't about Donnie Betts showing up in issue 2 of Shadow Man, and not issue 1.
Could have been.
I don't see him in Unity, by the way.
Shadow Man?
Yeah.
Oh, not Donnie Betts.
Right.
So you see this like weird netherworld where all of time exists at once. Dinosaurs and high-tech science fiction stuff, robots flying on those dinosaurs. It's a weird comic.
Yeah.
And look at the color too. I always thought of the Janet Jackson Valiant coloring as being almost like painted blue line style, but then you see this early sort of, is that airbrush
I think
or
it's
is that
airbrush.
digital?
It's practical. Yeah, like it's practical. When there were several teachers of mine at the Kubert School who were part of Nobro, and they had blue lines of Valiant pages and stuff like that. So that was the move, you know, and they would use markers, and what they're doing washes with is Doc Martin dyes.
Yeah, I've never played with those. It always kind of makes me wonder, because now and then you'll see that stuff, like the blue line stuff. I think a lot of that was Doc Martin dyes.
Yeah, it is, and the thing is, it's aniline dyes that are meant to show. It's not meant to make art, really. Mm-hmm. Like, those were just indicator marks for the guys cutting color separations. But Joe Kubert would paint like the Sojourn covers and stuff is Doc Martin dyes, and whenever he would do color works, it would be Doc Martin. And each of the teachers, including Joe, would have their own kind of formula for how to get like Caucasian European flesh. And it would be like, you know, 1 drop of burnt sienna and to 10 drops of water. And then, of course, the Joe Kubert art store sold like little tincture bottles and shit where you can store your own flesh tones and
that's
other
pretty
colors.
Good. I remember my first painting class, like, it might have been literally the first session, we went over like how to do flesh tones, and it was the weirdest color combination where it'd be like green would be mixed in and stuff, like really not something I would likely stumble on my own.
Yeah,
counterintuitive color combinations to get like a flesh tone.
And if you play with the Doc Martin dyes, it is so extremely vibrant. I called it high octane on the channel before, so I can't exactly remember, but I think it's burnt sienna is like the most important color, because you got to put a little of that in every color to just bring it down to earth,
right,
a little bit.
I linger here because he's going to send Jeffrey the Geomancer across space and time to get the reinforcements. And how will he get back? Here's my hand. take my hand with you.
I know, it's so weak.
It's so weird.
It's stupid because like we've had enough Jack Kirby comics that would like introduce very cool little mechanisms or figure out a cool way to do it, and then you understand that a mother box is this gate, like, but just giving a hand, that feels lazy. It feels like a stupid little prop, and then you realize Valiant is coming off of doing Nintendo comics and WWF comics. It's little kids who are fucking with these things, and you got Jim Shooter, Bob Layton, Barry Windsor Smith, a bunch of old ass motherfuckers trying to make a cool comic. It is nothing but, because there's young characters and stuff, and there's nothing that feels contemporary. And when you put this up against Todd, Rob, and Jim, and Eric Larson, it's a no-brainer. Like, this is nothing.
And for context for everybody, this is 1992, the date on this issue, which is Image Comics. So that is what you're up against. Although, to be fair, I think it did do well against Marvel DC. You know, I think these two, it was kind of like you wanted one or the other, if not both. This is your bad guy, by the way, named Pierce, but it's that woman from the beginning, her, you know, another version of her, but it's just this middle-aged woman is like your heavy for Unity. You know, speaking to your point of, are these cool characters or not? I don't know. Is a 37-year-old suburban woman a great bad guy for your entire universe to square off against?
She's old Karen.
It reminds me of like wrestling or something where it's like you can't have Stone Cold, you know, fighting Sable.
Yeah, right. And even stuff like with the Eternal Warrior, like, they keep calling him other things. So it's up to us to know that he's the Eternal Warrior. Maybe because we see on the back cover. So maybe even the title Eternal Warrior is a bad title, or you should just go Silver Age with this and have them call him Eternal Warrior. Because, like, it just, you're introducing all these characters that we don't know about. This is issue 0, so it'll certainly be a lot of people's first experiences with Archer and Armstrong and stuff. You gotta break things down.
Because this is probably literally the first time you're seeing Archer and Armstrong.
Right.
And they're like hiding from these guys with guns.
This dude's his brother. So, you know, that's established.
A lot of info there. It's funny that there's a phone as being an integral part of all of this.
Right. And all the energy stuff is weak, by the way, with these lines and the kind of prism shapes and stuff. It's clearly Barry Windsor Smith trying to do something that's not Kirby-ish, but it's also not very cool.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out maybe our most glowing Valiant piece, it's a Harbinger review with David Lapham and a team that I really like those early Harbinger issues. Yeah. But most of this stuff is tough.
I like the, I remember liking the Archer and Armstrongs, which I think is Barry Windsor Smith drawing.
He does it for a while.
With Shooter.
Probably, maybe at the beginning. I think he probably takes over writing, Barry Windsor Smith, probably, because Shooter leaves like shortly after this, so it could only be maybe the first 2 issues or so that Shooter would have been involved with, I think.
Okay.
And that's basically, that's it. You know, they cut back very quickly, gather up the Valiant heroes for the most part, and show up with Rye, or show up with Solar, but Rye and Magnus show up, and they show up independently of the Geomancer. So whenever he returns with the Valiant heroes, it's like, oh yeah, these guys got here too. like we don't know how or why, but here they are, ready to go at it.
Jimmy, what'd you make me read this week, man?
Yeah, I was surprised by this. I'm not gonna lie, but I do wonder, like the Wildstorm Rising. I am curious to see Barry Windsor Smith like do it again with another universe.
Jimmy, we're doing Age of Apocalypse comics soon, man, because I know those will be watched.
There's your checklist.
Yeah. So do we? Like, yeah, Turok's not quite a part of it, and you see how it works. Like, Archer and Armstrong, Eternal Warrior, brand new. Magnus has been out for a year and a half. At this point,
yeah,
Rye has been
16
out for
issues of Magnus. Turok's first appearance, I think, is Magnus 12 in this universe. That was a big deal, I think, in those early Wizards for hot books, hot back issues. That one was popular. So Turok must launch like right after this.
Jim Shooter talks about when he was at Marvel, he was trying to make some moves with the guys at Western or Dell or whatever to get those characters, and then he started to read the tea leaves and see that he wasn't long for Marvel anymore, so he was kind of doing diplomacy outside of the company with the guy who owns those characters, and that guy said, "I will hold off, and I will give you those characters whenever you set something up in the future," and he did, and that Dell Western whatever they made good on that, but in these hardcore tumultuous 1990s, NWA is out, Nirvana is out. You're gonna hang your company on a dude that wears a little chainmail dress, a little skirt.
Yeah, it always seemed weird that Valiant had the success it had based on comics that I couldn't quite figure out who the audience was for them. I think it was old disgruntled Marvel readers.
Yeah, I think so.
That wanted that old kind of thing. And the other Valiants that are on my list, I mentioned that Solar, the Barry Windsor Smith story. It's been a long time since I've read that, so I'm kind of curious to go back into that one. It's more of a sci-fi story, if my memory serves. Exo Zero is a Quesada issue that I think is kind of interesting.
Good cover.
And then there's an Exo issue that Ditko draws as a fill-in. It's like maybe 5, 6, something, 7, something like that. Early on, probably before Unity. And it's just bizarre because it's like Ditko's drawing, a room or whatever, and like Exo's standing in it. And Exo's very far from what I think of as like Silver Age superhero character Steve Ditko art.
Right.
So to have him drawing that, and it's very grounded, is kind of a neat issue. I was actually staying with Ben Mara. I was doing some work in New York and going through some comics that are sitting there, like on the table or whatever. And I'm looking at it. He had a bunch of Valiants, and I'm looking at it and didn't realize it was Ditko. And it was just the weirdest experience of looking through this Exo Manowar comic and then realizing, oh, it's Ditko. Okay, that kind of explains what I'm seeing here. But it feels like one of those, talk about like a weird comic to pull out. I'm curious to revisit it. I don't know if it's good fodder for this channel or not, but it does seem like we ought to be able to sculpt some kind of title with Ditko and Exo Manowar. And
it's such a weird period for comics, because like Barry Windsor Smith, he's back on the scene after Weapon X and has a very high buying temperature, and Shooter loves him, and Jim Lee certainly loves him, pulled a lot of strokes from him. I bet this might have been some of his best. I mean, it had to be his best money years.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think this did well. Like they kind of rig it that you've got to buy a bunch of books to get to this point. So I do think it did some numbers.
Yeah, totally.
And like you said, I didn't get this back in the day. I found it in a quarter bin.
But unfortunately, these Valiant books in the canon of Barry Windsor Smith's artwork, and maybe it is because of like the interference with like a Bob Layton inker or something, but it's a blemish because we know how he draws and we know what he can do, and these are very much phoned in, and I hope he cashed some checks, man. Like I hope he made some bank, but his name is being used to sell these things because this is direct market comics. There's no kid who's coming across this comic at like a Rite Aid or something, so you have to have they're hoping that some of the baggage of direct market comics kind of like gets caught up on this stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, Barry Windsor Smith, but then you get it, and it's kind of like a fizzle. It's a sad thing.
That's how I felt this week reading this.
Yeah.
I used to say like this is the Valiant and Image, the alpha and omega of 80s Marvel.
Yeah.
And this is certainly that the old style versus Image being that post Shooter new style. And I think at the time it might have been refreshing because Marvel was a mess in the early 90s in terms of how style and trying to make everybody draw like Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. Like it was just bizarre, those comics, once the Image guys left. This made a lot of sense, I think, to people at that time. But now you jump ahead 30 years and you look back and it's like this comic almost feels like it's 40 years old or something. Like the weird time elements of this, not that out of place in 1992, a whole different like Silver Age or something when you look back on it from today's vantage point, I think.
Yeah, it's true. And when you see those names in the credits box, it's very clear that it's a kind of a response to the popular comics of the day, but now you're fighting upstream with what people are interested in, what people are buying by doing this. And I was buying comics from a hardware store or something around this era that would do like multi-packs and shit, and it would have like one Valiant and like 2 kind of Image books or something, and you just put that Valiant to the side, and then you enjoy your issue of Trencher and like Shaman's Tears or whatever.
Boy, that's a rough 3-pack.
Yeah. It would be the Dollar Tree that would have that, and then it would start to be like Lightning Comics would show up in that shit. But that's I never paid cover price for a Valiant comic in my life.
I remember buying a bunch of them. Whenever the back issue, when everybody's just hemorrhaged their back issues, I bought like all the shooter back issues of Valiant for, I think, $0.25. I think I got them at that Monroeville, the Steel City Con one time, walking through there, because people were just dumping those back issues. And for a long time, the Valiants were always marked up. Yeah. And then it was like at some point, like the back issue market just fell apart and you could just scoop these things up for nothing. And so I ended up with like that original. I think I have all the original, like the shooter issues. It's kind of neat, but it's also, like I say, it feels like a bygone era.
Yes, some of those early boxes that my dad got at the flea market, the plastics, the bag and boards would have the prices that this guy was shooting for, and because of that, some people bought some of that stuff. So like, I don't have full runs, but I have like almost full runs with maybe one or two that got bought out by some fucking sucker. But I remember, like, if I go grab that Eternal Warriors, because I still have the bags and boards and stuff, this dude wanted $15 for it. My dad paid $8 for the whole box.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And just did the whole thing of like, man, we've been watching you bring these shits here for all summer. How about we just take it? We'll give you $8. Like,
that's such a funny amount.
Be done about it.
That's good.
If it was $8, the guy said 10, and my dad's like, $8.
It makes me wonder, you know how CGC will list like how many comics and what grade they have?
Right.
I feel like the Valiants all went into the bags and boards. And that now, if you probably look them up, it's probably like they're all 9.8s.
Yeah.
There's like 1,100 9.8s of Shadow Man #1.
Buy our books if you got that money to invest in CGC and nonsense, man. You good to go, Jimmy?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. Kayfabetober is upon us, and we have your drawing prompts for this October. Make sure that when you post these images, you tag us, you add us, you let us know that you're you drew these things so that we could repost them and share them on our channel. Rising tide raises all ships. We'll share your stuff and hopefully get some more followers in the mix. We have a Patreon where the King Kayfabers on the Patreon get access to all the videos before anybody else. Mitigates the Kayfabe effect. So those Unity Zeros, they're getting the cheapest copies of those online. Don't you feel like you missed out? And we are a daily YouTube channel. We put out videos all the time, and there's more than 1,500 videos out right now. We might have talked about some of your favorite comics. So hit the magnifying glass on the front part of the YouTube channel. Give a search for your favorite titles. Check out those episodes. And if we didn't talk about your favorite comics yet, let us know in the comments so that we can push those comics a little higher on our to-read pile. The videos ultimately are brought to you by the books that we make. And before you is a little sample of our bibliography to date. But we're always working and we're always making new stuff. So, Jimmy, show the people what you have coming out soon.
Street Angel, Princess of Poverty is my next release from Image Comics. It will be out in late November, but you need to pre-order that one now at your local comic shop. Let them know how many of these we need to print. This is a companion book to Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive. If you get Princess of Poverty and Deadliest Girl Alive, you will have all of the Street Angel comics that I have made to date under one unified set look. So pick that one up if you haven't already, and pre-order Princess of Poverty if you haven't already. I have been self-publishing some zines and comics lately. The BW zine celebrating the black and white explosion comics of the 80s. The 1986 zine celebrating the greatest year in comics history. And True Crime Funnies, 3 nonfiction stories in this first issue, including a couple of wrestling yarns. I am going to be selling all of these in a holiday/fall sale starting October 26th on jimrug.com. If you can't wait that long, you can join me on patreon.com/jimrug, where you can download and read a bunch of my out-of-print zines and mini comics.
The time is now. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming out to stores October 18th, and we've sold pretty much 75% of the print run. So if you want one of these, you got to put your name on it through your local comic shop, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. whatever's convenient. But I want to thank everybody who's purchased a copy so far. We're going to get that to you as quickly as possible once we sort of open those floodgates. And I hope everybody can get this put onto their own bookshelves, because it's the best book I've made to date, coming to you in time for the 10th anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree and the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture. So thank everybody who ordered it so far, and we'll try to fulfill those orders ASAP. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback comes out in November, and we are compiling all of my X-Men Grand Design works in one cover, which is cool because some of those volumes are out of print right now. Red Room has been the focus for the past couple of years. 2 trade paperbacks of that are out there, Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. And the third edition, the third volume of Red Room is going to be called Crypto Killers. That trade paperback comes out in January. That could start off anywhere. It's arbitrary because each story is completely self-contained. So give it a shot. If you dig it, grab more Red Room comics. Now, the books are the most important part to keep the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel flowing, but there are some ways to support the channel directly. Jimmy, if you'll let the people know.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. That allows us to give you information on where we're going, what's going on, new releases, things of that nature. You can also pick up Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under the video in the show notes.
All good ways to support the channel. Jimmy, give them those final marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Cool beans, man.
I always feel bad whenever the books are really lousy, like that Unity book.
Did you think it was going to be anything but?
I don't know. It's Barry Windsor Smith. I went in with an open mind. I do think we should look at Wildstorm Rising, though, and compare and contrast, because, like, it's so strange that dude is doing those kinds of books.
Yeah.
Paycheck books, I guess. I hope. And, I mean, Storyteller comes out of there.
Right.
I assume that's, the impetus for Storyteller.
Now here's the thing, man. With Warren, we shot one extra. So if we skip it, like we'll be good. But the thing is, I want to be on every video, man. So like, if you think you could do it in like 10, we should look through it, and it could be like live for a whole day. But if not, like I want to put something out that day too.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. October 26th is a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about posting it at midnight, and then we would record the regular Thursday live and give the update, and that should be flying out. So okay. I'm fine. I can record that one.
Cool. So we still have the same kind of queue and stuff because we had Warren. We did 8 with Uncle Warren, so that was fun, man.
Yeah, it's good to see him.
So guys, Seth time. We didn't see too many things come through the chat room where he's concerned, and we're going to cut the stream off because I want to set up and I want to fuck around on the computer to make sure that we get, it's been a while, since we done that, so I want to make sure that we get everything perfect, but we'll keep our eyeballs on the Patreon comment section underneath this second stream of today for the King Kayfaber. So if questions come up in your mind, let us know. And Jimmy, you're on the edit for this one, so like you should edit this Seth before anybody, so that the Kings could get access to that. Since they're not able to sit in with us, we just need. If you're new to the King Kayfaber thing, man, we just need 100% of internet stream to go directly to our subject, so that there's no max headroom type bullshit that might occur. We just want perfect bandwidth. Which is to say, I should go move the router back in there. So, yeah. Kings, thank you guys so much for coming through. We'll get together next Thursday, and then after that, is it Monday? Or two more sessions? Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
two more sessions. So 2 more Thursdays, and then it'll be Monday.
Yeah, we have good guests lined up for those, too.
So, and I'm going to keep pursuing more.
Stay tuned.
I'm going to keep pursuing more and more, Jimmy. And maybe this weekend I'll put together a stream or 2.